In the depths of space, hidden within the heart of a massive star system, a council of galactic leaders gathered in secrecy. This was not a place most species could enter. Only the most powerful, the oldest, the wisest, had the privilege of sitting at the council's table. Representatives from over 1,000 species filled the grand chamber, their many different forms and colors creating a tapestry of life beyond imagination. The meeting had been called to address a growing concern, a species that was becoming far too unpredictable for comfort. The species was humanity. At first, the humans were barely noticed, a young, inexperienced race just a few centuries old. They were weak compared to the others, with their fragile bodies and their planet far from the center of the galaxy. But over the years, the humans grew and so did their power. They built ships that could travel to distant stars. They created weapons that could break through the defenses of much older species. Their technology was strange, often unpredictable. Most of all, it seemed that no matter what challenges they faced, humanity always found a way to survive, adapt, and grow stronger. This terrified many in the council. There were whispers of chaos in their actions, recklessness in their decisions. Some council members called the humans a threat to the delicate balance of power. Others believed that humans, if left unchecked, could one day rise to challenge the entire council. No one was sure what they would do when they reached full strength. As the day's meeting began, the council members, alien and human alike, took their seats. The room was cold, the walls lined with strange symbols that none could fully understand, even after centuries of observation. There was a sense of calm, but underneath a deep anxiety simmered. At the head of the table sat the Grand Elder, a being of immense age and wisdom. Its species had been around for millennia, and it had seen civilizations rise and fall. It was the Grand Elder who had called this meeting. "I have called this assembly to discuss the future of humanity," the Grand Elder began, its voice a slow and deliberate hum. "We must decide what to do with this unpredictable species." The room fell into silence as representatives from various species nodded or shifted in their seats. The tension was thick. "I move that humanity be controlled," said one of the council members, a tall, dark-skinned being with eyes like burning stars. "They have shown their potential to disrupt the peace. We must put limits on their growth, perhaps isolate them, or guide them in ways they cannot resist." There were murmurs of agreement. Another voice joined in, its tone cold and calculating. "Yes, their unpredictability makes them dangerous. We must ensure they are kept in check before they destroy the order we have built." Other members spoke in turn, each offering their own solutions. Some wanted to place sanctions on human technology, while others proposed limiting their access to the stars. The humans, after all, were still new to space travel. Surely they could be contained. The debate went on for hours, but it was clear that the council was united in one thing. Something had to be done about humanity. No matter how small they might seem, their growth was too fast, too wild. They could no longer be ignored. Finally, the Grand Elder called for a vote. "The decision must be made now," it declared, its ancient voice booming across the chamber. "We will vote on what actions must be taken to control humanity. The future of the galaxy is at stake." The voting was a solemn process. Each member of the council stepped forward, one by one, and cast their vote. The results were clear almost immediately. The majority was in favor of taking action against humanity, to ensure they never posed a threat to the established order of the galaxy. The vote was decisive. Humanity would be controlled. As the final vote was counted, the Grand Elder's eyes glowed with a quiet satisfaction. It had been a difficult decision, but it was the right one. The other species would be safe. Order would be maintained. And then, just as the council began to relax, something unexpected happened. The doors to the chamber opened with a hiss. A tall human figure strode confidently into the room. A second human followed. Then a third. The council members stared, shocked and confused. No one had been told that humans were allowed to enter. No one had invited them. Who were they to walk in unannounced? The lead human smiled, his face calm but determined. "We heard you were having a meeting," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "We thought we should join you." A ripple of confusion spread across the room. Several council guards immediately moved to intercept the humans, but they were stopped by a strange symbol the humans wore, a small glowing pin that none of the guards recognized. "What is this?" one of the council members asked, his voice tight with suspicion. "Who allowed you to enter?" The human ambassador stepped forward. "We have been watching," he said. "We've been listening, and we've come to speak. You were just discussing our future, after all. We thought we should be here for it." The council guards hesitated, glancing at their commanders, unsure of how to respond. The room was still silent. 1,000 questions hung in the air, unanswered. Finally, the Grand Elder spoke, its voice calm but filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and concern. "You dare enter this chamber uninvited after we have made our decision?" it asked, its tone sharp. "You are aware of what the vote has been?" The human ambassador nodded, unfazed. "Yes, we are aware of your decision, but we have something more important than your vote." There was a quiet tension in the air now. The other members of the council looked on, intrigued despite themselves. And so humanity, the species that had once been a mere blip on the council's radar, now stood in the heart of the galaxy's greatest political body. They were uninvited, unexpected, and entirely unapologetic. But they had come for more than just answers. They had come to change the course of history. The humans stood in the center of the council chamber, their presence unsettling the room's tense atmosphere. The Grand Elder, once filled with quiet confidence, stared at the three figures before him, still unsure of their purpose. The human ambassador, the leader of the small group, took a step forward. He was tall, his features sharp but friendly, and his eyes sparkled with quiet determination. His two companions stood just behind him, their expressions calm, yet clearly alert. They did not flinch or show fear as they faced the council, something no other species had dared to do before. One of the council guards, a creature with 6 arms and a body that seemed made entirely of smooth, reflective metal, stepped forward. Its eyes glowed with a pale blue light, and it raised its long arms to motion for the humans to step back. "Who are you to enter this chamber?" the guard demanded, its voice cold and mechanical. "You have no right." The human ambassador raised a hand, not in defense, but in peace. His voice was calm as he spoke. "We come in peace with an invitation from no one but ourselves. We heard you were discussing the future of humanity, and we felt it was important to be here for that conversation." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The room was still, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. No one spoke for a long moment, unsure how to react. A few members shifted nervously in their seats. None of them had ever expected this. Humans walking into their most private meeting uninvited, daring to speak without permission. Finally, the Grand Elder cleared its throat, its voice deep and resonating. "What do you want?" it asked. Its tone, though still measured, carried a hint of frustration. The vote had already been cast and humanity had been marked for control. What more was there to say? The human ambassador did not hesitate. "We want to speak. You may have decided our fate without asking for our voice, but we are here now, and we will speak." The Grand Elder's glowing eyes narrowed. "And what could you possibly have to say that would change our decision? You have no power here. We, the Council, decide the fate of all civilizations. You are simply one of many species, untested and unpredictable." The ambassador smiled slightly, though it was not a smile of arrogance. "I disagree. We may be new, but we have something more than power. We have resilience. We've faced extinction. We've faced war, and yet we are still here. Your vote to control us, to limit our growth, may seem logical, but it's based on fear of what we might become." The Grand Elder's expression faltered for a moment. There was no denying the truth in the human's words. Humanity had been through hardships no species in the galaxy could truly understand. They had survived, against all odds. "You claim to know us," the Grand Elder replied, "but you are blind to the reality of your own species. You have no understanding of the order we've built, the peace we've maintained. There is no place for chaotic growth in this galaxy." The human ambassador's eyes flickered with something deeper, understanding, perhaps even compassion. "We aren't asking for chaos. We're asking for freedom. We don't need to be controlled. We just need to be allowed to grow, to exist alongside the rest of you. There is a difference." Another council member, a creature with tentacles that seemed to writhe and shift like water, spoke up. "What do you know of order, human? You are a young species. You don't have the centuries of experience we do. We are trying to protect the galaxy from instability, not destroy it." The human ambassador's voice remained calm, but there was a fire behind his words. "We've already seen instability. We know what it looks like. But we also know that growth, when done right, can bring strength for everyone. And we have learned how to do it. We've created our own systems, our own ways of ensuring peace. And now we stand before you, not as a threat, but as a partner." The words hung in the air, and for a moment no one spoke. The council members, some wise and ancient, some youthful and eager, looked at each other. They were used to dealing with species that respected their authority, species that bent to their will. But these humans were different. They were not afraid. They did not cower. After a long silence, the Grand Elder spoke again, his voice thoughtful but firm. "You are bold, human. But boldness alone does not win favor in the galaxy. You may not be a threat now, but your potential is unsettling." The human ambassador stepped forward slightly, as if drawing closer to the heart of the matter. "Perhaps you don't understand the power of humanity. It's not just in our technology or our strength. It's in our adaptability, our ability to survive and learn. We are not as you think." One of the younger council members, a creature covered in shifting golden scales, spoke quietly. "What are you saying, that you have some secret power, that you are invincible?" The ambassador shook his head. "No, we aren't invincible, but we are unstoppable. And that is a lesson you'll learn soon enough." A murmur spread through the chamber, some agreeing, others raising their eyebrows. The tension was thick, and the room seemed on the verge of erupting. Yet the humans stood firm, unwavering, as if they knew exactly what they were doing. "Tell me, human," the Grand Elder said, his tone softening slightly. "Why are you here? Why did you choose to walk in on us? Why not stay hidden like the rest of your species?" The human ambassador's gaze sharpened. "Because we've watched you. We've listened to your discussions. We know how you operate. But we will not be treated like the others. We will not let you decide our future without us having a say. And we've come to give you a choice. You may not control us. You may not confine us. But you can work with us, or we will work without you." The words were powerful, and the room grew even quieter. The humans were offering something the council had never expected: a choice. No species had ever dared to demand that from the council. For a long moment, no one spoke. The council members exchanged looks, unsure how to respond. And in that stillness, the human ambassador finally said the words that would change everything. "You can either accept us as equals, or you can watch as we move forward with or without your approval." The council sat in stunned silence, the weight of the human ambassador's words pressing down on them. Never had any species dared to speak like this in the hallowed halls of the council. Never had any race, young or old, threatened to defy the council's decision so boldly. The Grand Elder's glowing eyes flickered with uncertainty, a rare sign of hesitation. Its species had been around for millennia, shaping the course of the galaxy, deciding the fate of countless civilizations. And yet, here were these humans, primitive in comparison according to their records, standing in front of them with such confidence. The human ambassador broke the silence. "You know our technology," he said. "You've watched us, but you've never understood us." A quiet ripple spread across the room. The alien council members exchanged glances, their discomfort growing. For all their wisdom, for all their centuries of experience, none of them truly understood what made humanity tick. The ambassador continued, his voice firm. We've heard the stories you tell about us, that we're chaotic, that we're reckless, but those are just the surface stories. You don't see the deeper truth. One of the council members, a creature with a translucent body that shifted in color with every movement, spoke up. What truth? That you are dangerous? That your unpredictability is a threat to the galaxy? The human ambassador didn't flinch. No, the truth is that we've survived. Against all odds, we have endured. And that's what you don't understand. Our survival is our greatest strength. We don't fall easily, and we don't give up. The council member with translucent skin hissed softly, clearly agitated. You speak of survival, but survival alone doesn't ensure peace. Peace is built on order, on control. If every species acted on sheer survival instinct, the galaxy would be chaos. That's what you believe, the human ambassador replied calmly. But peace doesn't come from control. It comes from understanding. It comes from finding common ground. We don't need to be controlled. We need to be understood. The Grand Elder's eyes narrowed, its voice steady. And how do you expect us to understand you, human? How do you expect us to believe that your kind, so new to the stars, can be trusted to shape the future of the galaxy? For the first time, the human ambassador's gaze softened, as if recalling something deeply personal. He stepped closer to the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. We don't expect you to trust us, he said, but we ask you to listen, to hear our story. The council members sat in rapt attention, their eyes focused on the human. He was offering them something far more valuable than technology or strength. He was offering them his species' history, a history that none of them knew or cared to understand. The ambassador continued, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. We were born on a planet called Earth, a small blue world on the edge of a quiet galaxy. Our ancestors lived in small tribes, struggling against the elements, fighting for survival. We didn't have the luxury of peace or order. We had to make it. He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. The room was silent, and the council members leaned forward, curious to hear more. We built our societies from the ground up, he went on. We didn't start with power or technology. We started with nothing but our will to live. And over time we learned. We learned to work together, to build nations, to create governments that could balance order with freedom. It wasn't easy, and we made many mistakes, but we learned from them. The human ambassador's eyes burned with a quiet intensity. We fought wars. We faced natural disasters. We even came close to destroying ourselves. But each time we picked ourselves up, we found a way to survive. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the council. Many of them couldn't imagine a species going through the kind of struggles the human ambassador described. Their own species had long ago reached a state of stability, of peace. To them, humanity's survival was not a matter of strength, but of chance. The ambassador pressed on, undeterred. You call us unpredictable. You call us chaotic. But those traits are what made us who we are. Our ability to adapt, to innovate, to find solutions where others see only obstacles. That's the core of humanity. One of the older council members, a being whose skin seemed to shimmer like 1,000 tiny stars, spoke up. But we've seen what happens when species grow too quickly, when they don't understand the balance of power. We've seen races destroy themselves in their quest for expansion. What makes you think your species will be any different? The human ambassador looked at the member, his gaze unflinching. We don't claim to be perfect. We've made mistakes and we'll continue to make them. But the difference is that we learn from them. We don't just repeat the same failures over and over. We grow, and if you give us the chance, we'll prove that to you. A tense silence followed. The council members exchanged looks, their expressions guarded. They had expected to hear an apology, an admission of weakness. But instead they had heard a challenge, a promise that humanity would rise above its flaws. Finally, the Grand Elder spoke, its voice heavy with thought. You claim that humanity has something to offer, but how can we trust you? How do we know that you will not repeat the mistakes of others? The human ambassador smiled, though it was a smile filled with determination, not arrogance. You can't trust us right now, but we will earn that trust. We will prove that we are different. We've already proven it by surviving everything the galaxy has thrown at us. There was a long pause. The council members looked at each other, uncertain. The human ambassador's words had unsettled them, made them question their assumptions. But could they truly trust a species that had only just begun to walk the stars? I will say this, the Grand Elder said slowly. Your kind may not be as weak as we thought, but you are still untested, and the galaxy is a dangerous place. We cannot afford to let you disrupt the delicate balance we have worked so long to create. The human ambassador nodded, understanding the weight of the Grand Elder's words. We don't want to disrupt the balance. We just want a chance to be a part of it. The room grew silent, the weight of the Grand Elder's words hanging heavily in the air. For the first time, the human ambassador realized that the council's decision might not be swayed by mere diplomacy or words alone. The galaxy was vast, and it was not easily moved by promises. But there was something else, a truth they had not considered yet. The Grand Elder's ancient eyes glowed dimly as it spoke, its voice low and thoughtful. Your survival, human, is impressive, but survival alone does not guarantee you a place in the future. We have seen many species rise and fall, and many of those who thought themselves invincible were brought to their knees. The human ambassador nodded, understanding the gravity of the statement. You're right. Survival doesn't guarantee success, but it does give us the strength to face what's coming. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. What could the human ambassador possibly mean? The human stepped forward, his voice now serious. There is something you haven't seen yet. Something bigger than your politics, your divisions, and your concerns about humanity's future. His eyes locked with those of the Grand Elder, and he spoke slowly, carefully. There is a threat out there in the void, something that none of us are prepared for. The chamber, which had been thick with tension, grew even quieter. The council members, many of whom had dealt with threats in the past, looked at each other nervously. For all their wisdom and experience, they had never considered an external force that could rival the power of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. The human ambassador continued. We've been monitoring something for a long time. Something that's been moving closer to this region of space. We didn't know what it was at first, but we've learned a lot since then. What is it you speak of, human? Asked one of the more skeptical council members, a species with large, solid black eyes and an insect-like form. The voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. You suggest that there's something out there, but you provide no proof. The ambassador held up his hand, signaling for silence. I don't have all the details yet, but we have intercepted signals. Unusual ones. They're not from any known species, not from any technology we recognize. These signals are coming from beyond the edges of the galaxy, and they're growing stronger. The room fell into stunned silence. The Grand Elder's expression remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed slightly. And you believe these signals are connected to a threat? We believe they are, the human ambassador said, his voice firm. We've learned to read the patterns. We've seen enough to know that this isn't some random anomaly. The signals are purposeful, and they are coming closer. The insect-like member of the council sneered. And why would we trust you, a species we've just met over our own centuries of wisdom? You say there's a threat, but what is it? Who is it? Or are you simply trying to make us believe you are the only ones capable of saving us? The human ambassador's gaze softened. We're not asking you to trust us blindly, but I'm asking you to listen. We've been tracking this thing for years now, and we've learned more than we ever thought we would. Whatever it is, it's not just some passing force, it's intentional, and it's coming for us all. One of the older members, a creature with delicate wings made of iridescent glass, spoke next. We have faced many threats in the past. Human. The galaxy has seen wars, invasions, and natural disasters. What makes this threat so different? The human ambassador's face hardened. This is different because it's not like anything you've ever faced. This isn't a race of beings looking to conquer. This is something older, something far more dangerous. And it doesn't want to conquer us. It wants to consume us. Our systems, our planets, our very stars. The council members shifted in their seats, uneasy murmurs filling the air. There had been whispers of strange forces beyond the galaxy's edge, but they were always dismissed as rumors or stories, the ramblings of those who had no understanding of the galaxy's true power. What exactly are you saying? The Grand Elder asked, its voice now tinged with more curiosity than before. What is this thing that you fear so? The human ambassador paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. We don't know everything, but what we do know is that this force isn't just passing through. It's targeting us, targeting civilizations. First, it cuts off all communication, then it wipes out entire fleets, entire systems, and after that it leaves nothing, no trace of its presence except for the destruction it leaves behind. There was a long, heavy pause. The council members were silent, contemplating the implications. For the first time, doubt crept into their minds. Could they have misjudged the humans? Was there something larger, more terrifying out there? We've been gathering information, the human ambassador continued, and we believe it's only a matter of time before it reaches our region of space. If we don't act now, it will be too late. And by the time you realize what's happening, it will be too late for all of us. The Grand Elder sat back in its chair, its eyes flickering in thought. It had always believed that the galaxy's peace was guaranteed, that nothing could threaten the delicate balance they had spent millennia maintaining. But now, faced with the possibility of an external force so powerful, so destructive, even its wisdom seemed insufficient. What do you propose? The Grand Elder asked, its voice softer now, almost reluctant. The human ambassador didn't hesitate. We need to work together, all of us. We may not agree on many things, but this is a threat that could destroy all of us. We need to combine our resources, our knowledge, and our strength. The Council has the power and influence. Humanity has the courage and adaptability. Together, we might have a chance to survive. For a moment, the Council was quiet, each member deep in thought. The ambassador's words hung in the air, and despite their doubts, despite their pride, they knew the truth of it. The galaxy was vast, and no one was truly safe. Not anymore. Finally, the Grand Elder spoke. We will consider your words, human, but know this. You have not yet earned our trust. You will have to prove that your kind is not just capable of survival, but worthy of the galaxy's future. The human ambassador nodded. We will prove it. The days that followed were tense. The Council, once united in their decision to control humanity, found themselves torn. The human ambassador's words had stirred something in them, a question that refused to be answered easily. Could they truly dismiss humanity as a dangerous threat? Or was there more to this young species than they had realized? Behind the closed doors of the council chambers, members argued and debated. Some were still convinced that humanity must be contained. Others, the younger, more open-minded representatives, began to question their long-held beliefs. And in the midst of it all, the human ambassador remained patient, watching, waiting for the council's decision. While the council debated, humanity moved forward. The human government had not been idle. Knowing that the threat the ambassador had spoken of was real, humanity began to prepare. They shared their findings with the species willing to listen. Slowly but surely, the open alliance began to take shape. It wasn't long before smaller civilizations, those not bound by the Council's authority, reached out to humanity. They had seen the signs. They had heard the whispers of something beyond the stars, something that could threaten all of them. And now they wanted to know more. They wanted to join humanity in preparing for whatever was coming, but not everyone in the Council was ready to listen. The older, more conservative members feared that if humanity gained too much support, Their power would be undermined. They began to push back, subtly at first, undermining humanity's efforts to form alliances. The tension between the factions in the council grew. Old alliances were tested and fractures began to appear. A meeting was called, this time with no illusions about the stakes. The human ambassador entered the chamber, his steps steady, his eyes focused. As he took his seat, he could feel the weight of the council's decision hanging over him, but there was no turning back now. Humanity had made its choice. The Grand Elder spoke first, its voice carrying across the room. Humanity's rise has been rapid, but it has been too rapid. You claim to be working with the rest of the galaxy, but your actions are threatening the very fabric of our unity. You seek to build alliances without our consent, and we will not tolerate such behavior. The ambassador remained calm, his voice steady. We didn't come here to ask for permission, we came here to work with you. But you need to understand, there is a greater threat than any of us can face alone. We are not just preparing for humanity's survival. We are preparing for everyone's survival. One of the council members, a creature whose body shimmered like liquid metal, stood up. You have no right to act without our approval. The open alliance you have built is a violation of our agreements. You are dividing the galaxy. Another voice, this time from the insect-like member, cut through the rising tension. You say you are working for the good of all, but all you are doing is weakening our authority. This council has kept the peace for millennia. We will not let a species like yours tear that down. The human ambassador's eyes locked with the insect-like representative. He had expected this kind of resistance, but it was still frustrating to see. You don't understand. The galaxy isn't as safe as you think. There's something coming, something we can't face by standing divided. The Open Alliance is not a challenge to the Council's authority. It's a partnership, one that could save us all. But the Council was divided, and the debate only grew louder. The once united assembly now appeared more like a battlefield. Some members stood with humanity, quietly nodding in agreement with the ambassador's words, while others openly opposed them. The Grand Elder watched in silence, its ancient eyes unreadable. Finally it spoke. We will not stand by and let the fabric of our civilization unravel. Humanity will not be allowed to continue this course unchecked. The words struck the ambassador hard, but he did not waver. Then we will proceed without you. A few members of the council shifted uncomfortably at the human's defiant tone. This was not the response they had expected. The ambassador's voice grew stronger. We don't need permission to survive. Humanity has already faced extinction. We've fought our way back, and if the galaxy will not stand with us now, we will fight on our own. The tension in the room reached its peak. The human ambassador could feel the pulse of the room, the weight of the decision that would determine the fate of humanity and the galaxy. But one thing was clear. Humanity would no longer wait for the council to make up its mind. The time for action was now. Some members of the council who had been undecided were now visibly torn. They had never seen a species so determined, so unwilling to back down. The council's long-held assumption that they could control everything, that they could dictate the future, was starting to crumble under the weight of the human spirit. The Grand Elder looked around the room, sensing the fractures that were beginning to form. It had never imagined that such a young species could challenge the very foundation of their power. Finally, after a long silence, the Grand Elder spoke again. Humanity's strength is undeniable, but your actions have not earned our trust. You are still an unknown, a wild card in a galaxy that thrives on balance. We will not allow you to destabilize the order we have worked to build. The human ambassador stood, his face set in a calm but resolute expression. Then we will stand alone, but we will not be alone forever. With those words, the ambassador turned and left the chamber. Behind him, the murmurs of the council members continued, but he paid them no mind. Humanity had chosen its path. Whether the galaxy chose to stand with them or not, humanity would rise. As the doors closed behind him, the human ambassador knew that the fight was far from over. The council had fractured, and there was no going back. The future of the galaxy would depend on the choices made in the coming days. But one thing was clear. Humanity would be a part of it, whether the Council accepted them or not. The ambassador walked out into the hall, his resolve hardened. The galaxy was full of uncertainty, but humanity had proven one thing: they would never back down. The days after the Council's fractured decision were filled with tension. Humanity had left the meeting determined to continue its path regardless of the Council's refusal to cooperate. The human ambassador's words had left an imprint on the galaxy, and now it was time to see if humanity's resolve would hold. In the weeks that followed, the Open Alliance began to grow. Small, independent civilizations that had long been wary of the Council's dominance saw an opportunity in humanity's boldness. These civilizations, which had lived in the shadows of the galaxy's major powers, saw a chance to unite with a species that was willing to fight for a future beyond the Council's rule. Meanwhile, the Council had begun to take action. Though they could not openly suppress the growing alliance, they worked behind the scenes to discredit humanity's efforts. They tried to impose trade sanctions on the civilizations joining the Open Alliance, hoping to isolate humanity and its new partners. The Grand Elder remained silent, its eyes constantly watching, calculating the consequences of humanity's defiance. But in its heart, a feeling of unease had begun to take root. It was not just the growing strength of the humans, it was their resilience, their ability to inspire others that worried the Council. No species had ever challenged their authority so directly, and it made them question their assumptions. The human ambassador, on the other hand, was busy working with leaders of the Open Alliance. Humanity's message was clear: unity in the face of an unknown external threat. They had gathered enough evidence now to show that something was coming, a force beyond the galaxy's edge that would soon reach them. The evidence was mounting. Strange signals, disappearing ships, and unexplained disruptions in space. Humanity was not just preparing for their own survival anymore. They were preparing to protect the galaxy itself. In one of the Alliance's hidden bases, a group of human scientists worked around the clock, decoding the strange signals humanity had intercepted. They had uncovered patterns, clues that suggested an intelligence behind the force that was approaching. Whatever this force was, it wasn't random. It was purposeful. It was intentional. And it was coming. But the task of rallying the galaxy was not an easy one. The Council's influence still held power, and many worlds were hesitant to join the Open Alliance, fearing the Council's wrath. Humanity had earned respect from a few, but it had yet to earn trust on a galactic scale. The human ambassador, however, did not falter. He knew this was only the beginning. He had seen humanity rise from the ashes of destruction before. This was not the first time his species had been faced with extinction. The ambassador remembered the wars, the famine, the threats from within and without. And yet, humanity had always found a way to adapt, to evolve, to survive. One evening, as the ambassador sat in his quarters, a message from a distant world reached him. It was from one of the smaller civilizations that had joined the Open Alliance. Their message was simple but direct. We stand with you. The galaxy needs unity, not division. The ambassador smiled as he read the message, the weight of their words lifting his spirits. The message was just the first of many. Slowly but surely, the galaxy was starting to listen. The tide was turning, but the Council, too, had begun to act more decisively. They were not willing to let humanity's challenge go unanswered. The Grand Elder had called for a special meeting of the Council, one that would address the growing rebellion once and for all. The ambassador was called to the meeting, where the tension in the air was palpable. The Council members, their faces grim, awaited his arrival. The time for talks was over. This would be the final confrontation. As the human ambassador entered the chamber, he could feel the eyes of the entire galaxy watching. The room was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, all eager to see what would happen next. The Grand Elder stood at the head of the table, its ancient presence commanding the room. "We have heard your words, human," the Grand Elder began, "and we have seen the consequences of your actions. You have defied the Council's authority, and now you have brought the galaxy to the brink of war." The human ambassador stood tall, unshaken by the accusation. "I didn't bring war to the galaxy. I brought a choice. We're offering the galaxy a chance to survive together. But if you choose to fight us instead of joining us, then you will have forced this conflict. Not us." The council members shifted in their seats. The human's words struck a nerve. Many of them had never expected such defiance. They had always seen their power as absolute. Now they were faced with something they could not control, and it frightened them. The Grand Elder's eyes softened, though the underlying tension remained. "You speak of survival, human, but you do not understand the gravity of what you are asking. If we do not contain this chaos now, if we do not assert control, there will be nothing left to save. You will lead the galaxy into ruin." The human ambassador shook his head. "You still don't understand. You're not just trying to control us. You're trying to control everyone. You want to maintain your power, but the galaxy is changing. We can no longer afford to keep secrets. To protect your reign, the galaxy's future is no longer in your hands alone." For a moment the room was silent, the weight of the human ambassador's words sinking in. The Grand Elder's gaze remained steady, but the tension in the air was undeniable. This was no longer just about humanity's place in the galaxy. This was about whether or not the galaxy would continue to be ruled by a few powerful species, or whether it would evolve into something new, something united. Finally, the Grand Elder spoke, its voice tinged with a mixture of regret and resolve. "You have given us no choice, human. The Council will no longer stand in your way. But know this, we will watch you. We will see if you can truly live up to your promises." The human ambassador nodded, understanding the gravity of the decision. "We will prove it. Together, we will protect the galaxy." As the meeting ended, the human ambassador left the chamber, his heart heavy but determined. The path ahead was uncertain, but humanity had finally taken its stand. The galaxy was changing, and humanity would be at the heart of that change, whether the Council liked it or not. The storm was rising, and soon all would have to choose, join together to face the unknown or fall divided into ruin.